For you lesser-known candidates up here, it can sometimes be hard to get your message out. What do you think should be changed about the presidential election process to make it easier for lesser-known candidates to be able to reach the voters?
Maybe a little bit of airtime wouldn't hurt. I don't know. What I'm doing is I'm going person to person, and then I'm talking to newspapers. I've actually heard that one newspaper turned down a lesser-known candidate, wouldn't even write an article on him. I mean, actually, I find that some of us have the ideas, and people just don't want to hear them, just because they want to believe that the major candidates have all the answers. And that's a fluke right there, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Meehan. The next question is going to come from Ambassador Shoemaker and be directed at Mr. Lynn.
Mr. Lynn, Governor Perry of Texas, who is one of your fellow competitors for the Republican nomination, has suggested that the members of Congress should have their pay and their time spent in Washington cut in half. Do you agree or disagree with Governor Perry, and why?
I agree with him because they're already making too much money as it is. A lot of these are professionals, they're doctors, lawyers, they're already making a lot of money in the real world, and I would definitely cut their pay in half. They don't need all that money. Until they get to work for us, we don't need to pay them. I mean, it's time for Congress and the Senate and the President to wake up. It's time to start working for the American people, and we need to cut their pay. And when they start to work for us, then we'll give them a raise later on. They're just not doing their job.
Thank you. Beth, your next question is for Mr. Davis.
Mr. Davis, some of the Republican presidential candidates have talked about wanting to get rid of some government agencies, the Department of Energy, for example. Do you see this as a path for reducing the size of government?
Yeah, I do, and the one of them I'd get rid of, among many, is the Department of Education. I think it should go down to the state and mostly to the communities. Who knows better how to educate your kids in this community than the people in the community and the parents? And so the government is just too big, and it takes all of our money and spends it, hires all these experts, but it's up to the community to educate their kids, and that's all I have to say.
Thanks.
Mr. Crow, your next question comes from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Crow, our government is based on some basic principles, including that we have three separate equal branches of government. Yesterday on a Sunday morning television talk show that you may not have seen because you were probably out campaigning, former Speaker Gingrich suggested that if the United States Supreme Court made a decision that the President did not agree with, that perhaps it would be okay or proper for the President to not enforce that decision, and cited some historical examples. Do you agree with Speaker Gingrich or not, and why?
No, I definitely disagree. I just think that it's part of the balance of power, but I think that we're never going to have anything that is close to a balance of power until you stop the bribery. In other words, if you make money in the government, get money from the government, you contribute. So you've got the executive branch that, in my opinion, has kind of walked into the direction of a dictatorship, mainly because they get so much money from people that that get them elected and direct them. But no, I think that the money has got to be taken out first, but I think we need three branches of government.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. Beth, your next question is for Mr. Hill.
Mr. Hill, Congress's approval rating is at an all-time low, and a lot of people, frankly, feel that it's very difficult for Congress to be able to do anything. If you were elected president, how would you work to get bills passed and to see your policies through Congress?
First, I'd begin with this, Beth. The reason Congress's popularity is so low is because they've failed America. And so before we start down the road of working with Congress, we need to put term limits in place for Congress. I'd begin as president leading the American people, calling on an amendment in the Constitution for term limits for Congress. We need that, and that is the most vital thing that will redirect this country. When I was 16 and I worked for Ronald Reagan, back 30 years ago, some of the same members in the House and the Senate are still serving today. The problem is not with presidents. The problem is not with the American people. The problem is with congressmen and senators that serve for 30 to 40 years in this country and have turned Washington, D.C. into an aristocracy in America.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. The next question is from Ambassador Schuman for Mr. Lawman.
Mr. Lawman, I'm going to follow on to the last answer, and you're running for the office of President of the United States, and until 1952, we didn't have term limits for the President of the United States, and a lot of people think that was a mistake to impose a two-term limit on the President of the United States because most second terms since then have not been particularly successful. What's your opinion? We've heard about another panelist's opinion on term limits for Congress. Do you think there should be a two-term limit for President of the United States, and why or why not?
Yes, I absolutely do believe we maintain the two-term limit. And even though it had not been enacted until after FDR, I believe prior to FDR there had not been more than a two-term president prior to him, even though the law did not require 2 terms or less. So I do believe we should keep that. I also believe we should keep term limits in Congress, particularly no more than 2 terms for Senate and no more than 4 terms for House. I believe in all of those. What it does is it keeps America turning over new ideas and new faces. It's rather ridiculous to think that with 311 million people in this country, that only 535 have answers and solutions. That leaves another 310 million plus who have no voice, who probably have better solutions and better answers than ones you'll find.
Thank you very much. And the last question tonight comes from Beth and is going to be addressed to Dr. Court, please.
Mr. Court, or Dr. Court, excuse me. I'm going to stray a little bit away from Iran for a moment and ask you about the theme of the presidential race this year has been jobs, jobs, jobs. As president, what would be the first thing you would do to grow jobs in America?
That's a very good question, Beth. Thank you. Yes, our economy, of course, is going off a cliff. The huge TARP giveaway that President Bush was in favor of and the giveaways further that Obama done have really ruined the country. You can't print a lot of money without destroying the economy and inflating the dollar. One, we got to stop this giveaways. We got to stop this runaway spending in Congress. We got to slash spending. Also, I believe we have to do away with the Fed. I'm in favor of Ron Paul's idea to have the gold be back to the gold standard.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank you, first of all, for your answers and your time tonight. I want to thank you for adhering to what was fairly quick time, but we did get a chance to go through 3 times. We weren't sure we'd get through once. I also want to thank everybody but Dr. Court for adhering to my memo about blue blazers. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. The Democrats are up next. Thank you, gentlemen.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Joe. Nice to meet you.
Good luck. Nice to meet you.
Okay, everyone. We're going to get started again. Patrick Griffin.
Thank you. Welcome. How's that? No, that's not good. How's that? Whoa.
What's wrong?
The set budget is all, you know. Hello, hello.
Testing.
Test, test, test. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, while we're getting our set back together, thank you for continuing to join us. If you were here for the Republicans, we had a great session. Now we get a chance to have a session with our friends from the other side. We will try and adhere to the same rules as before. As I mentioned earlier, there are 44 candidates running for president here in New Hampshire who are on the ballot. Candidates who are asked to participate in tonight's Republican and Democrat debates are all registered and on the ballot in New Hampshire, running for the office of nomination of the party for the office of president, who have not been part of any other national debate. And that was the criteria to be here tonight. We're going to try and do this in a manner that is as expedient as possible. Each candidate in alphabetical order will be given a 2-minute opening. I will be watching Jim Splain, our timer over here, and I will let the candidates know when we get to 15 seconds. If you see that sign that Representative Splain is holding up, that is an indication you're at 15 seconds. We are going to hold you to that 15 seconds to get you done. 2-minute openings. Each of our panelists will ask you questions. You will then have 45 seconds to answer the questions. Let me reintroduce our panelists, Ambassador Terry Shoemaker and Beth Lamontagne Hall from the Union Leader. Let's give them all a warm hand. And gentlemen, as I introduce each of you, on your microphone, there's a little button to turn it on when it's your turn to speak. So when I call on you, just make sure you turn that microphone button on so the cameras can pick up your audio and the audio can pick up your audio. How's that? Let's start at the far end of the table. Let me introduce you from Moortown, Vermont, Mr. Ed Cowan. Next to him, Dr. Bob Greene from Mountain View, California. Next to him, Mr. John D. Heywood from Durham, North Carolina. Mr. Robert B. Jordan, right next to him from Garden Grove, California. Mr. Edward T. O'Donnell, Jr. from Wilmington, Delaware. Mr. Vermin Supreme from Rockport, Mass. Mr. Randall Terry from Purgattsville, West Virginia. And Mr. John Wolfe from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Let's welcome all of our Democratic, lesser-known candidates tonight. Gentlemen, we're going to try and get through as many rounds as possible. So, that said, we will start down at the far end of the table with Mr. Cowan. Mr. Cowan, a 2-minute opening statement, please.
Hello. I'm a writer, thinker who has been published on 3 continents, and I've got some important ideas about our most serious problems, most of which are ignored by the establishment. My most basic message is, let's get organized, Americans, and start solving our top problems. How? We ask Obama and all national politicians worldwide, do you agree, Mr. President, that the top 5 problems of the planet are: 1, the nuclear-tipped arms race. Number 1, because it's the only problem that can destroy us, with ozone coming up quickly on the outside rail, and because by solving it we can save trillions of dollars. 2, excessive population and population growth. 3, the stagnant, self-cannibalizing, super wasteful, wholly corporate, global market economy. 4, disparity between the rich and poor, within nations and disparity between nations. And 5, the environment, the master of ceremonies problem that never leaves us, that we solve only in degree. If you do not agree, Mr. President, what are the top 5 problems of the planet? And where, sir, is your plan to solve them? Please understand that I don't have the answers. It's we, not me. We, the 4 billion adults who get it done daily around the globe, have the answers to our top problems. So, President Obama, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, I say, if you don't like these ideas, come up with something better, and the worldwide debate will have begun. EdCowan2012.com for more information, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Dr. Bob Greene, you are next, sir. 2 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Bob Greene. I hold a PhD in physics. I have some very good news for you. I am running to educate the candidates, media, and public to a tremendous opportunity available to the United States now. I'm here to tell you about thorium, an overlooked energy alternative. We have enough thorium for all our power needs for well over 1,000 years. A lifetime supply for a single person is about the size of a golf ball. For more details on thorium, please go to my website, www.greeneforoffice.org. Green has an E on the end. That's www.greeneforoffice.org. What's in it for you? With electric cars and thorium-created fuel cells, we could stop importing foreign oil. This means we will be able to stop fighting oil wars. Thorium reactors can become a major export industry. That equals jobs and an improved economy. Energy is a large component of manufacturing variable cost. Cheap local power will revitalize our manufacturing sector. Manufacturing and shipping a reactor a day, we could replace all fossil fuel plants in 50 years. This should stall climate change and global warming. Because this technology can process our millions of tons of existing nuclear waste, we might be able to use the 10% of the $24 billion nuclear waste fund that is sitting on the sidelines for project development. We need to mount a Project Thor with the enthusiasm and zeal of the Apollo project, ASAP, and to make this a reality. Last January 25th, the Chinese Academy of Science announced the official launching of the thorium-based molten salt reactor system. They said that they intend to have all the intellectual property rights. This is going to happen with or without us. Are we going to be the leader or a customer? Thorium will change everything.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Heywood, your opening statement, 2 minutes, please.
My name is John Heywood. I'm from Durham, North Carolina. I have three main proposals. The first is health care. I propose replacing our for-profit health care with a national health service modeled on the British National Health Service. That British system works. It's been in place for 63 years, and it's popular with the people. It's incredibly more efficient. At 42% our cost, with a savings of over $1 trillion a year. Third, it covers everyone. Fourth, life expectancy is greater. Fifth, the service is paid out of a progressive tax system as opposed to a regressive premium tax imposed by the health insurance industry. Secondly, I propose a return to a steep and progressive income tax, specifically the 1965 Kennedy-Johnson Code. And the reasons for proposing that are, number one, it's fair. It ends money hoarding. Under that code, the top 1% of households receive 10% of the income. Today, that 1% of top 1% receives 24% of the nation's income. Third, it grows the middle class. Fifth, it will shrink the debt. Seventh, it will save capitalism. For without a strong and progressive tax, it all goes to the top.
Mr. Heywood, I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you. Next question, next opening remarks will go to Mr. Jordan. Sir, 2 minutes. Excuse me. Well, we'll give him 2 minutes anyway. Sorry about that. Let me see here. Mr. Jordan is not here. That's Mr. O'Donnell. Yes, sir.
We need love, kindness, mercy, tolerance, friendliness, forgiveness, second chances, and old-fashioned manners. No guns. The Greeks said, let us tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of the world. No wars. A guaranteed job for everyone, paid for with private charity dollars. Mental health courses in high schools, and a non-violent foreign policy based on feeding, clothing, educating the third world poor. Christmas is the most wonderful event in world history. The message is no matter how much of a mess someone has made of their life, if they make a decision to love other people, there can be a happy ending. When my niece, Yoko O'Donnell, was very young, I said, why is Santa Claus always happy? She said, because all he does is give. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. And an opening 2 minutes to Mr. Vermin Supreme.
Thank you. Gingivitis has been eroding the gum line of this great nation long enough and must be stopped. For too long, this country has been suffering a great moral and oral decay in spirit and in incisors. A country's future depends on its ability to bite back. We can no longer be a nation indentured. Our very salivation is at stake. Together, we must brace ourselves. As we cross over to the bridge work, into the 23rd century, let us bite the bullet and together make America a sea of shining smiles from sea to shiny sea. Now, friends, some people will tell you that this mandatory toothbrushing law is about the secret dental police kicking down your door at 3 a.m. to make sure you've brushed. Friends, it is not. Some will mention the dental re-education centers or the preventative dental maintenance detention facilities. It's about none of these things. It's not about the government-issued toothpaste containing an addictive yet harmless substance. No, friends, it is not even about DNA gene splicing to create a race of winged monkeys to act as tooth fairies. Friends, what this mandatory toothbrushing law is really about is strong teeth for a strong America. My name is Vermin Supreme. I am a friendly fascist. I am a tyrant that you should trust, and you should let me run your life, because I do know what is best for you. Yes, I am a politician. I will promise you anything your little electorate heart desires, because you are my constituents. You are the informed voting public, and because I have no intention of keeping any promise that I make. Vote early, vote often. Remember, a vote for Vermin Supreme is a vote completely thrown away. I would like to take this moment to acknowledge my mother, who is in the audience here today. Please stand up, Mother. Please stand up. If you can stand up, please stand up. She's going to try and stand up so you can acknowledge her. This is my mother. There we go. And 5 years ago this April, I gave her a kidney. My challenge to you people, everybody on the stage and everybody in the audience, give up a kidney.
All right, thank you, Mr. Supreme. Thank you. The next 2-minute opening, Mr. Randall Terry. Sir, you have 2 minutes.
I just want to know, what did I do wrong, God, that I have to be after that? Barack Hussein Obama may well go down in history as the worst president we have ever had. The worst. He is at war with life, liberty, and justice. If I were elected President of the United States, or if someone who had my ideas was elected, that would mean that we have liberty. Liberty is defined that you are not compelled to labor for the benefit of another. The essence of socialism, which we have become a socialist state, is that you are forced to labor for the benefit of another. Justice, foreign policy needs to be based upon human rights, not upon our oil interests in our deep water ports. Right now, we're propping up Islamic dictatorships. We're paying for terrorism at the gas pump. Every time we buy gasoline, some of that money goes to Saudi Arabia, who then turns around and gives it to various terrorist organizations. If we had energy independence, or at least we weren't giving money to states that are funding Islamic terrorism, human rights could be front and center instead of oil. Next, the courts. Most of the major paradigm shifts in this country have come through the courts, not through elected officials. We are seeing what could be defined as a ruling unelected oligarchy, and they need to be reined in. And finally, President Lincoln said that, could it be that the Civil War was the judgment of God? That every drop of blood that was drawn by the master's whip would be repaid on the field of battle? We've come to the insane place as a nation where we have killed over 52 million of our children by abortion. And that blood, like the blood of the slave, is crying out to God for judgment. We will never restore the greatness of this nation as long as we are killing our own offspring. Go to terryforpresident.com if you'd like to see some of my television ads and read more about our principles. terryforpresident.com. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Terry. Appreciate it. Mr. Wolfe, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm John Wolfe. It's on here. I'm John Wolfe, an attorney from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm happy to be here tonight, and thank you for all the graciousness of your invitation. And first of all, I'd like to say I don't think that we are a socialist country. I mean, you've got 1/5 of the people, the top fifth, that own 94% of the financial assets. The top 1% make 23% of the national income. And I don't think that's much proof of socialism anywhere. But I'm in this race not to countermand my friend here, Mr. Terry, but I'm in the race because there's a progressive void that's left here by President Obama. President Obama is a Democrat, but President Obama has lost the promise of the Democratic Party and the promise of his administration and the promise of this country. He has basically sided with Wall Street from the day he's been in office. Most of his funding comes from Wall Street. He surrounds himself with people like Erskine Bowles. He surrounds himself with people like GE's Jeffrey Immelt, who wished that every factory run a ship so it wouldn't be accountable to any government for anything at any time. And he has people like that around him, and they have a lot of influence on the Oval Office. They finance his campaigns. And the outcome of that, the product of all this, is an administration that has policies that are very, very favorable to Wall Street, but not to Main Street. President Obama will not back. He opposes a 1% tax on the Wall Street derivatives, the speculative instruments that got us in trouble in the first place. President Obama opposes a legal wall of separation, which we had during the New Deal up until 1999, that would keep community banking free of speculation. The banks could do their traditional functions without having to get involved in casino capitalism. And President Obama has not tried to stop that. So we need a progressive who's going to get in there and fill that void and to do the things that the president, who had so much promise, so much personality about him, has failed to do. And that's the breach that I want to fill, and I hope to answer y'all's questions tonight after this meeting and, of course, during the time allotted to us.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfe. That concludes the opening statements of each of our candidates. We will now go to our panelists, who will each alternate asking the candidates a question. Remember, gentlemen, 45 seconds, so we can get through as much as possible. The first question...
Where's the clock?
Where's the warning?
The clock is right over here. If you look at Mr. Splain, that 15 seconds he'll hold up, and that's what I'm using. Okay, thank you. The first question is from Ambassador Shoemaker, and it is to you, Mr. Wolfe. You'll have 45 seconds.
Mr. Wolfe, thank you for your opening statement, and I would add that Mr. Splain not only keeps the time, but he wrote the law that made the New Hampshire primary and kept it first.